I don't know where you live, but don't you have the feeling that if you live in the West, that the quality of our leaders, top leaders, I mean, is decaying? It's in steep decay, while a lot of the professionals on our society, I mean, doctors, nurses, teachers, workers of every kind, are working harder and harder to make the same money or the same gains, and sometimes while losing gains, especially if they live off a salary. It's a strange environment, strange times we are living in, because I do remember, well, I barely remember the 70s. I cannot say that I have memory or understanding, at least, but the 80s I remember well, and the 90s, and of course the path, the state of things now began back then, mid 80s, about then. For example, in the case of Portugal, when it joined the European Union, it all seemed wonderful and roses, but there were some groups of people, good quality academics, and for example, the television was more diverse, more diversity of opinions. It did not exist a general unique narrative like you have now. I mean, we only had like two public channels in Portugal. The third channel, a private one, opened in 1992, the first private channel, and then I think 1 or 2 years later, if I recall well, the fourth private channel opened. But part of my childhood until my teenage days, we only had two channels, and still we had a much more diverse TV, diversity of opinions, of debates, several types of movies, cultural programs. Of course, back then when I was a kid, I found a lot of that very boring, but looking back, I see the importance and the richness of the TV we had with such short platform, right? I remember, and for a long time, when you had only two channels, I remember that the second channel opened only like in the afternoon and closed very early, had very short hours of working. Of course, we had also entertainment programs that were okay, not very rich, very light, but that's also part of this platform, right? We cannot demand that everything has to be a well of knowledge and a well of enlightenment. Sometimes you just need to loosen a little bit, right? So, but it was all much more balanced. And remember that I've started by mentioning the leaders, the quality of the leaders. And today I was thinking to myself, while I was performing duties at work, repetitive duties, well, the quality of the leaders seemed to be along the lines, if we could see a graph, seemed to be along the lines of the decline of the quality in the means of communication, right? And now that we reach like a peak, a very steep curve on the graph, which means explosion of means of communication, like from 1-2 channels and a dozen radios, radio channels, radio stations. We now have thousands of, I mean, you have infinite things. It's the internet, right? Plus hundreds of TV channels and dozens of radio stations and internet radio stations, which is not radio, is internet. You know what I mean. I mean, huge infinite spectrum of this kind of communication. And I smelled sulfur. I'm passing by an industrial zone. Sorry. And so it seems like the quality of quality of our politicians was accompanied by the decline in the quality of our means of communication. This is a far-fetched theory, right? But, you know, indulge me on this one, because, I mean, what harm can it be? Can it do? Right? But the means of communication are often seen harmless, because they are just, a lot of it is fiction, a lot of it is marketing, propaganda, a lot of it's drama, and some of it is news and reality, right? Used to be, like in this proportion. But the thing is that things didn't happen like overnight. They were bit by bit disappearing. It's like if you imagine for example, the melting of the ice cap, for example. It's like bit by bit. You don't really notice it until maybe it's almost gone, if ever gonna be. I'm not sure. I'm just trying to make a comparison. So it's bit by bit, so you don't really notice it, because it goes through generations. And generation after generation, you start to increment different kind of narratives, different kind of thoughts, which is normal through generations. I think this is very normal, of course. New ideas, science advancements, and everything, and things like that. Mostly by practical means, as society advances, new habits come and that. But concerning knowledge, you almost see, I don't know if you see the same, clearly a dumbing down of society. It's not that people are born less intelligent. I don't believe that. I don't buy that. Is that your education and all the inputs you have when you grow throughout life are becoming increasingly and intentionally poorer, less rich in the way of thought provocation, in the way of transmitting, for example, collective values, values of altruism, values of cooperation, and also you see people with less and less capacity of sacrifice. Of course, some people have more than others, but it seems like that you've been fermenting, growing a generation that is now in power, and the change is not stopped. It's a dynamic thing, and you reach to one point where you have, for example, if you foment a lot of this selfishness in society, do your thing, you are the only one, you only can trust you can do anything you believe on, it's you. And then what you see is you have the bootlickers climbing the ladder of power and you have the competent and the critics, the people who can think and think critically, being put aside. Sometimes by indirect means. What I mean with this is that people simply get fed up. They want to do the right thing, they want to go and put out the work, and they become surrounded with morons. Morons and greedy people, people with narrow sights, people who do anything just to climb the ladder of power, be it in a public institution or in a private institution. I think now this, and I think the worrying part is that this mentality is also reaching institutions like teaching institutions, like basic education, schools, and higher education, universities as well. For example, when you have this anxiety, you are a teacher, but you are less worried in teaching well, and more worried, more concerned of doing your own paper, to have your name written somewhere, to be acknowledged by your peers, or and then you lose focus on your real mission, which is to create new generations of thinkers and of learners and of teachers. This eventually, all this mix will of course, then you have the pressure of this free market society, which just chews up everyone who is not efficient in earning money, working for money, selling out basically. And this creates the perfect ground to breed this new race of leaders that we have, that are perfect minions of power, of the true power. I don't know, what do you think? Is it far-fetched? I'm sure a lot of information is missing on my memory analysis made out of memory. But like it very generally, very broadly, it seems like everything is interconnected. Or maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the age, and then you start realizing things that you haven't realized before. It can be that possibility. I mean, like every generation, it can be that. Always the older generations, when you past like your 50s or something, you start to look back and you think that things before were better. I don't know, might be. It might be. I don't know. Let me know what you think. What do you think? Is this society breeding really spineless leaders? The bootlickers, the ignorant, the people without any principles, the people without any ideology. Let me know. See you on the next.